Right, going live here, getting this all set. And we're on. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we are looking at forward folding. And we're looking at it because forward bending is the #1 cause of low back pain and injury, specifically bulging discs and herniation. We've heard it once, we've heard it a million times. Look with your legs, not with your back. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about forward folding, folding forward. And that's whether we're picking up like that heavy thing that's in the basement, or we're doing yoga poses that are forward folds. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Justisha DeClue, and I own Maha Yoga here in Philadelphia. And I'm the founder of Aligned to Freedom, which is my signature 8-week low back pain solution, where I help go-getters and overachievers who've tried everything under the sun to get out of pain in their back to banish their back pain once and for all. All right, and one thing that we look at is safe forward folding. And I wanted to go live to talk about this because I think what a lot of us with back pain think what we experience is that we have pain in our backs in back bends. And so it feels like that's the dangerous class of poses. When I bend backwards, I get a pinch in my low back, and so avoiding back bends. But I want us to realize that it's forward bends that are really dangerous. And I want to talk through why that is and how to bend safely. All right, so first, we need to look at the anatomy. If you turn sideways, you can see, take your hand to the low back, and really low, it's the part that's right above the glutes. So the part of your low back where it meets the pelvis, that's where your pants are, not your top. And place your palm here with the fingers pointing down. So you have your hand right here, right above the glutes. Your sacrum, that's the long flat bone at the base of the spine, it's about the size of your palm. And then the fingers will point down and they'll be at the butt. So the palm right there at the sacrum with the fingers pointed down. The sacrum is where the pelvis connects with the spine. So right above that is your low back curve. Right below that is your tailbone. When the sacrum is in its ideal alignment in a neutral pelvis, like when we're standing here, the top of the sacrum tips into the body, and that creates the neutral curve in the low back. So the tailbone's below, and the lower back moves this way, it moves into the body. And that movement of the sacrum is what we're going to really focus on when we look at safe forward folding. So safe forward folding needs to move that sacrum with us. So you take your hand there again, the bone at the base of the spine. We're not at the low back, we're really at the pants. And feel how to move the top of the sacrum in. You get a little bit more of like a back bend feel. You're sticking the butt out. And now do the opposite. Tuck the butt under and move the top of the sacrum back. Again, top of the sacrum forward, the butt sticks out. Top of the sacrum back, the butt tucks under. You feel that movement as the pelvis tips forward back. Now notice the top of the thigh bones. This is what's initiating the movement. As the thigh bones move back, and sticks butt out, sacrum draws forward. The reverse, thigh bones forward, the butt tucks under. I want you to remember that the thighs govern the low back. So to keep the low back safe, we're going to look at the movement of the sacrum that's governed by the top of the thigh bone. When our forward folding is safe, the tops of the thighs will press back. The sacrum tips forward, top of the sacrum forward, and the fold happens right here from the hips. There's a hinge right here in the front hips that allows the top of the sacrum to drop down. And then the whole spine flexes forward with it. And when you fold forward like this, you want to feel the stretch here in the middle backs of the legs. And then as you get deeper and more like a sandwich shape in the fold, like you're really getting torso to legs, you'll feel some opening in the back. You'll feel some stretching of the muscles in the back of the torso. The forward fold that is dangerous does not move the sacrum. It looks more like this. My sacrum hasn't moved. I've had a lot of forward folding here in this part of the spine. You'll see this a lot with folks who are tighter in the legs, in folks who tend to have low back pain. They'll do a fold like this. In this pose, I'm feeling sensation here. And as someone who's had low back pain, I, at that time, thought, I need to stretch this area out. My low back hurts because it's tight, and so I want to do a pose where I can get a stretch here in the low back. Now I know when I look at that, that sensation is not a safe stretch sensation. It's more of an overstretch, or I would even think of it today as a strain. Oftentimes, the tightness we feel in the low back is because we're a little tucked under. It's because the hamstrings are tight and they pull the pelvis out of that ideal alignment. And when we have that extreme tightness, we need to stretch not the place of the sensation, not the indicator. That's like the symptom. The cause is those tight legs. It's important to get the stretch in the middle backs of the thighs, of the hamstrings, and move sensation out of the back. So let's look at it like this. We're going to do a forward fold, but a wide stance. You can take the feet much wider than shoulder width and make sure they're parallel straight ahead. I'll turn to the side so you can see. All right, so just watch here. This fold, someone who's tighter, what I'll see a lot is something like this. Here's the sacrum. The top of the sacrum is pointing up. It has not tipped down. It's above the base of the sacrum. And when the pose is here, it's not allowing us to stretch the back of the thighs. And for someone who has bulging discs, it's put so much pressure on those discs in the low back that herniation is, it's likely, it's possible. So for this person, it is so important that we bend the knees. Don't move the feet, turn the knees out. Now watch here. The thigh bones push back to help the sacrum start to drop down. Keeping the knees bent is the way. Bend the knees and be ridiculous about it. Bend them big time. Bend the knees forward. Turn the knees out and fold it in like that. We have to get the top of the sacrum to tip into the body in forward folds. It has to go that way. If not, it's not safe for the low back. And it doesn't mean you're going to hurt your back today, but that kind of folding, that kind of lifting over and over again only goes in one direction. And I'm telling you, it's not towards a healthy back. We have to mobilize the sacrum in our folding. All right, so now that we know how to fold safely, top of the sacrum moves in, the thigh bones push back. And really, it feels like a back bend. When the thighs go back, it creates a back bend, and that's what lets the fold move safely. See? So what are the best poses to open the legs to free up that pressure on the back? My favorite poses for this are all of the standing stretches for the legs. So that one I just showed you is the first one I go to, wide stance. And be sure when you bend your knees, they don't knock in. Some of us have this tendency in the legs where the knees knock in. It's important to rotate them straight ahead in the folding. That gives a little bit more, a lot more space in the back as well. So poses I go to, this one, knees bent, sacrum drops down, you're here. Next pose I'd go to would be same pose, a little more narrow stance, let's say hip width or so. And we're taking this pose from the perspective of the hinge at the hips. The more the hips hinge, the more the sacrum moves in, the safer it is for the back. Ideally, you get the legs open enough that with bent knees, you can bend the knees just a bit and lay your torso right on your thighs. You can sandwich all the way in. If not, you're moving towards that month after month, following the stretch here in the back of the legs, moving away from stretch here in the back. So those standing forward folds, wider stance is more doable. That's better for someone who's tighter, someone who's newer to folding, someone who's been working with an injury. More narrow stance is going to be tighter. You can work up to that. And then all of the asymmetrical poses that we have in yoga, like a pyramid pose where one foot is back, same. If my fold ends up more here, I'll need to bend the knees here, and you can bend both knees. Move the thighs back, like sticking the butt out to draw the sacrum down. It can be on fingertips, or some folks will put 2 blocks here, not here, here. You'll know because the stretch moves into the legs, the middle back of the thigh, and out of the lower back. And then the most troublesome poses, so the ones I would suggest avoiding if you're having low back pain, are the seated ones. I've met so many people who've had back injuries in seated forward fold. This is really one of the most perilous poses on the yoga syllabus for a newbie. And it's interesting because it looks so like mellow. You're just sitting there. Well, if someone walked by, it's like, oh, they're just sitting around. They're not really doing much of anything. But in the seated fold, for someone who's tighter, they'll end up here. The sacrum not only has it tipped forward, it's actually tipped back. The sacrum tips back, and what I'll see people do who are tight here is they'll strap around the feet. They can't quite reach the toes. They'll put a strap, the legs are straight, and then hold the strap and add more force of the upper body. And that force ends up going right there into the discs of the low back. So if you've had low back pain, I avoid learning the alignment in standing poses. And for a while, take the seated poses off the table. Work on the standing poses, learn how to move the sacrum using your legs, the top of the thighs, and then work back towards these seated poses. I don't suggest anyone uses a strap in a forward fold. Instead, bending the knees is a better option. That'll help the lower back draw in a bit. Or even better, I suggest take a straddle and then lean the torso back. Keep the shoulders back and the head back. And then using the strong legs, press the thighs, the top of the thighs down. It's like they could go through the earth. And use the thighs pushing down to initiate what feels like a back bend here in the low back. When we learn to move the sacrum first in the forward fold, then we're able to progress to deeper, more fold in a safe way. But again, these seated poses, this is the most dangerous class of poses for a newbie in yoga. Skip them. Start in your standing poses. Learn how to mobilize the sacrum by taking the thighs back. And in the fold, look for stretch in your legs, not in your back. I want to mention as well, so I was talking about like our tighter friends who have shorter hamstrings. They're like a cyclist or a runner. They do triathlons, and they end up in this position. And then they get the back stretch. I also see someone else who gets stuck in forward fold is actually on the other side of the spectrum. Someone who's more mobile will come into their fold and the knees will buckle back. I don't have the most hyperextended knees. Mine's all elbows, but a hyperextended joint is when it goes past straight. So when the knees push past the ankles, the lower back will get stuck. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's why learning to fold with the knees bent is so helpful. So even if you're not folded like here, okay, maybe my dad looks like this, but like I'm good, I'm here. I want you to, if your pose looks like this, just try bending your knees. Don't move your feet, but turn your thighs out, rotate the knees a little bit apart. Can you get more hinge here in your hips? Can you set your rib cage all the way on your thighs? And then can you keep that connection and go a little bit straighter without the knees buckling back? Right, that's the work for our more experienced yogi in forward folds. How to really maximize the hinge in the hips, which comes from this movement of the sacrum and the thighs, and controlling for that hyperextension of the knees. All right, I hope this was helpful. If you love learning this stuff and you want to keep your back safe over the long haul, Align to Freedom is my 8-week course. I do have a couple spots open on my calendar for next week. The link is in my bio. Check it out. I'd love to jump on a call and talk through how I might support you getting out of back pain once and for all. Hope it helps.